unerased. Lift up black women today. 100 years of pain, suffrage, and sorrow. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. It's time to honor those erased from her story. It's time to rise and take our place. In this moment, we won't be erased. Time to rise, time to rise. Stand in our power today.
Welcome to our Kitchen Table Talks, a podcast of the Public Engagement Initiative, Suffrage, Race, Power, Black Women Unerased. I'm Gwen McKinney, creator of SRP Unerased. Capturing gems from the cutting room floor of previous recordings, we're throwing a virtual dinner party hosted by the multi-talented Howard University professor and artist Carolyn Malachi. We feature insights from Nathaniel Chioke Williams, Executive Director of the Hill Snowden Foundation, and Vivan Nixon, Executive Director of the College and Community Fellowship. Come on in and grab a seat at our kitchen table.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Malachi. Welcome to the last virtual dinner party of SRP Unerased Trilogy 3. In this episode, I'm joined by two of my closest friends, Asha Santi and DJ Heat, and new to our sister circle, Dr. Rosemary Mealy. I played this quote by Vivan Nixon to get our dinner party started.
Well, the idea that there is this American dream, this exceptional, everyone has equal opportunity to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps in America, that all it takes is perseverance, dedication, and hard work, is a fallacy, because we are all not starting from an equal place. So if it's a pull up yourself by your bootstraps mentality, everyone needs to fundamentally at least start with a pair of boots. Well, those of us who were brought here from a different country to provide free labor to build an economy were never even given that basic pair of boots. In fact, our role was to make sure that everybody else had boots while we survived on nothing, and now are expected to function as if the playing field was equal. It never has been. Unless we teach that to people, there's a set of people who believe that they don't have an advantage over everybody else, and then they believe something is inherently wrong with people who can't succeed in America because America is the land of opportunity.
Rosemary wasted no time.
She's absolutely right. I mean, it's a myth about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. You know, Booker T may have said that. Whenever you think about our history, you always have to think that Black women's wounds, our wounds, were capital, right? And that capital produced the everything in this country. You know, how can you be an inheritor of a history, whereas Black women, we were producers to this society? How could we ever consider ourselves pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps? It's so that to me, that's fundamental to the basic myth that the sister explains to us.
Asha followed up.
Yeah. I used to have the mentality of everyone had an opportunity if they just got up and did something. And after being educated by my cousin in her book club on prison abolition, that opened my eyes. And then after that, everything became a lie. Racism shows up in so many different layers. It's not equal. And no matter what these people say, your discrimination is coming up in aversive and hostile and discriminatory ways that still put us at the bottom.
Asha, I really agree with you. And as you were talking, the ways in which they've tried to cover it up, we hear terms like diversity, multiculturalism, affirmative action. Those are the buzzwords that to some extent we have, and our movements have contributed to that. In our struggle for equality, we've had to find ways or terminologies to use. And then what they do is they co-opt those terminologies. But it's still fundamentally, the end result is racism, you know.
So, and I wouldn't even call it a buzzword. I would call it the punchline.
Okay.
Because it's a joke.
Right.
It's a joke.
Right. Right.
Heat brought up a very interesting point.
That's how I felt watching the Super Bowl, because especially with the NFL, they had these social justice spots. And I tweeted this out. I'm like, this is so wild to see all this with no Kaepernick, because this man is out of a job in the NFL because of what he stood for in social justice. He still does not have a job in the NFL.
Listen, we could dedicate an entire episode to that topic alone. With social justice and race firmly in focus, I played these words from Nat Chioke Williams.
I think and for full disclosure, I lapse into using the term people of color and communities of color because it's comfortable, it's easy. Sometimes you just don't want to take the time of listing out every single group that you're trying to refer to. But there's a lot of underlying problems with it. And so, for me, some of the problems with the people of color term is that, as your question kind of connotes, it erases the distinct identities, the histories, the needs and strengths of people, particularly Black people, in using that term. In this society that is predicated not just on anti-Black racism, but on white supremacy, when we use the term people of color, it reinforces white supremacy and othering by defining distinct people's identities as nothing more than a contrast to whiteness. And it's usually a negative contrast. And it's not as bad as, I guess, the term non-whites, but it's not much better. Another thing that I think about the term and kind of try to catch myself is that fundamentally it's lazy. It's, as my mother would say, it's trifling. You're doing as little as you possibly can in order to describe, represent the complexities and the nuance of different people. And it also prevents the ability to develop nuanced strategies for change. So, and then finally, I think when it came as a term of art, using people of color, I think it was meant to represent a kind of multiracial solidarity, a hope, a vision for people acting together and sharing both a common destiny and a common vision of oppression. But those things are not common. They are nuanced and they're distinct.
I could see his point. It's been my experience that people of color as a term is a softer landing than Black in certain circles. And using that term instead of Black robs my message of its meaning if I really mean Black. Heat broke it down in her own words.
I could say I am guilty, quote unquote guilty, of using the term people of color. And I stopped because we have to be honest in society. Everything that we're facing, we're in reality under that same umbrella. Our fights, our struggles are not all the same. Especially when it comes to, again, I'm always going to ride for Black people. I'm root for everybody Black. Things that we're facing are not the same as what other communities are facing. And vice versa. We all have our different struggles when it comes to being in this country. So, and just like he said, it can erase what we're going through as well. So I'm like, I straight up said, like, Black. And I see other people. A lot of people have faded away from using people of color, and we being straight up like, nah, I'm referring to Black. I'm not referring to anyone else. What I'm going through is an issue affecting Black people. So it's no offense to the other cultures, the other communities, but we all know we're all facing different things. So it's not trying to disrespect anybody, but we just can't lump everything together.
Why is it that nobody wants us to focus on the things that are specific to us as Black people?
Exactly.
Why?
Well, I think it's got lost. I can remember, and it's not so long ago. Politically, women coming together, Black women and other women coming together. We had an organization called the National Alliance of Third World Women. And this was the first time that I was able, as a Black woman, to see that there were commonalities. But it was a question of respecting each other's individuality, so to speak. And they, in turn, respecting Black folk and who we were and are as Black women. And we used the concept third world because it has a global framework. First, we were Negroes, right? Then we were colored. Then we were Black. Then African American. We've always had to find ways to find our place in this country, and it's always been based on the color of your skin, right? That you can't get rid of it. Even the color thing gets broken down to a point of anti-Black racism. And I'm sure that, many of us have had to address that and have had to speak to that, because some folk come here thinking that, they are white, but really they're no more than, they get called zigging just like we do, So it's all about the color of your skin. You can't run from it, and that's the whole educational piece. So I'm going to kind of stop there because I would be interested, Professor Malachi, touching on what you said, but just kind of bring it into now.
I have relatives who they're raising a biracial child, 2 biracial children. That's news. And they've said very clearly they don't want the kids to worry about race. They're not going to raise them as Black. They're not going to raise them as, the other race. They're just going to raise them as human beings because they don't want them to see race. We all talked about it as a family and tried to express, that even if you all don't teach them to see race, the world is going to see them and assume their race and decide how to treat them based on what they see. So I'm wondering if that idea of, just living and existing without any awareness of race or any consideration for race is actually going to do more harm to someone than good.
Asha said,
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Because so I mean y'all are in this understanding of like briefly what my experience was or lack of experience of what it is to be Black. My mom sheltered us from her experience growing up in Mobile, Alabama during the 50s. Within the last 5 years, I just found out that my family was literally locked in arms with MLK, had the keys to his office at the church, was doing tours, like pictures, you know what I'm saying? Like a whole history. But my mom chose not to share a lot of that struggle and that pain with us because she didn't want us to have that type of mentality. I don't blame her because our parents are humans. They don't know how to process all the things that we're still trying to process now. And so I did kind of grow up with what you would call an all lives matter mentality.
At this point, we switched gears to respond to Vivian Nixon's comments about the unique impact of mass incarceration on Black women.
Black women have been the epicenter of pain as it pertains to justice in America from the very beginning. Even before the mid-2000s, when we realized that the numbers of women going to prison was increasing at the rate of 700%, while the overall rate was increasing at 500%. Even before that increase happened, women were impacted because who was going to prisons when the conversation was about Black men and boys? It was our sons, our brothers, our fathers, our uncles. It was us who were grandparents having to raise our grandchildren because our children were incarcerated. Us, the aunts, having to raise our cousins because our relatives were incarcerated. Women have been the brunt of mass incarceration from its inception. It didn't dawn on the academics and the policymakers and the activists and the advocates that we were the brunt of it until we also started going to prison in larger numbers.
Like clockwork, Rosemary started dropping gems.
Well, we have been remiss. I've been teaching law for a while, and clearly it wasn't until the book came out, The New Jim Crow by Alexander, that I think folk began to really zero in on this in the whole prison rights movement. But yes, sisters were going to prison for being mules, carrying the drugs, and folk didn't even know that. There are sisters who were political prisoners who were incarcerated because of our political activism. So because we've been marginalized. Look, we're marginalized as Black folks. We're marginalized based on our gender and our class, and that class piece is, I think, really important and would help us to understand even more so how the incarceration rate of Black women got so high without our really understanding that or really taking that up as a part of the broader movement. So she's right. And they're languishing in prisons. There are even prisons like Bedford Hills in New York State. They even have areas for women to have their babies there. And then after the babies are born at the prison, then the sisters have to let them go to their families. So yes, that exists. So and then you have the whole question of women in prison who are being sterilized. We saw that most recently. These are women who are applying for asylum along the borders.
Heat responded.
I have like this guilty pleasure of watching prison reality shows. And that's something that I learned. I can't even keep up with what show I was watching. But they made mention that, women is just increasing. And like you said, they're being mules. They're helping out they boyfriends and this and that, or, you just in the wrong, you just happen to be in the house because, your son was doing something, but, you got to take everybody down in the house. And it's crazy, all because if you look at it, like these women are just trying to stand by their man. and how, and women, especially Black women, how we just want to be protectors of our family, but we're falling victim from trying to be protectors.
We defend ourselves from abusive men, and we knock them off, and we're the ones who get the time, right?
Malcolm X said it best: the most disrespected person in America is the Black woman.
Rather than play more comments from previous guests, we took the opportunity to just enjoy each other's company gathered around our virtual dinner table. We could have talked for hours. The discussion took off and made unexpected detours. We talked about performative activism, continuous evolution of identity, and knowing and appreciating ourselves. The rest of the night went like this. I mean, Doctor, it's been an honor to sit at your feet today. Seriously. It's like sitting under a shady tree.
I'm honored to. I'm humbled to be here too. I mean, because this is all I've been doing for the past 40 years, and so I'm learning too. And Asha, I love that evolution of identity. That's just so wonderful. Thank you so much.
No, you're
Not
welcome.
not that you haven't said anything that, but just your badass look is enough for me.
Listen, if people only knew. But
Wow.
even what you're saying, like, just to take that just one step further into even more understanding for me, is it's always evolving. It's probably evolving at a more rapid rate for some because there is no initial identity to hold on to anyway. So it's more of a continuous search for an identity. And if you're not locked into what that is, then it's going to continuously evolve. I mean, synonymous to like what the LGBT community is struggling with these days, pronouns, with what the world is struggling with these days, pronouns, because people are constantly evolving who they are. So we have to evolve with these people so that it doesn't come off as discriminatory, or it doesn't come off as I don't care about you.
It's making me think about what we saw last summer, where there was Blackout Tuesday. Everybody was posting their black squares on Instagram and forcing. I feel like a lot of major brands only posted some things about Black Lives Matter and social injustice because it was the cool thing to do on social at the time. It was almost like it was like the original Bernie Sanders meme. It kind of sucks that it became kind of trendy. Shout out to the companies that probably, and the corporations that benefited, because you have people donating out of their guilt that they're feeling, and it makes them feel better. Like, oh, I donated to this person and that person, but what change are you making?
Indeed. Thank you, Heat. Let's all ask ourselves, what change are we making? Much gratitude to Dr. Rosemary Mealy, Asha Santi, and DJ Heat for joining me for the last virtual dinner party of SRP Unerased Trilogy 3. I'm Carolyn Malachi, and the next voice you'll hear is that of Deborah Bond, singing Radio.
Just another sad love story. be done and all that was won. The wisdom we hold, the stories untold. Stand in our power today. Unerased.
Thanks for listening to Kitchen Table Talks, a podcast made possible by support from the Groundswell Fund, TD Bank Charitable Foundation, Craig Newmark Philanthropies, the Park Foundation, and anonymous donors. Our theme song, Unerased, features Latasha Brown on vocals and Glenn Pearson on piano. We had help from Levi Perrin, and special thanks to senior producer-editor Carolyn Malachi. I'm Gwen McKinney, creator of Suffrage Race Power, Black Women Unerased. Tune in to our Kitchen Table Talks and visit us online at srpunerased.com.